Hello and welcome. Today we are going to be hearing a final update on the food service category management work that the Innovation and Activation Board has just completed. A total of 19 manufacturers, 3 brokers, 5 distributors contributed to the output you'll hear today, which will be offered online through the IFMA website in the form of a best practices white paper. Please note that we will not be taking questions during this call, but if you have a question, you can ask it in the chat box, or you can email me at devon@ifmaworld.com. Now I am pleased to introduce Jeff Schrader, partner of the partnering group. Jeff?
Good morning, Devon, and thank you. And I'd like to say thank you to everybody who's joined the webinar today, and I'm going to jump right into it. So as Devon said, this is the final update. And what I'm going to do today is take everybody through, first thing is a real quick grounding of the project, which will just take a couple of slides, and then get right into the deliverables. So what are the end deliverables of the project, and what have we ended up with, and then where are we going to go from here? So with that, let me just move ahead. So it's been a while since the last update, but we had a couple of clear objectives that we wanted to accomplish with this project. And we wanted to make sure that we had a definition for category management that was specific to the food service industry and not a general overall definition. So we've done that. We'll look at that in a couple of slides. We also wanted to make sure, as Devon pointed out, that this was an all-inclusive best practices group that developed a process for food service category management. So we did have great representation from distributors, from manufacturers, from brokers. We also had, and Devon was probably just being modest, but we also had great sponsorship from IFMA, from IFTA, from FSCMBP, as well as 2 of the best data houses in food service, the NPD group, and of course Data Essentials. So it was a great group to help us develop best practices. We also wanted to create a common set of business planning tools or worksheets. I'm going to share some of those with you today as well. We're currently working on writing the best practices report, which will be the document that we will publish that sums up all the work that's occurred over the last, call it 8 months. And then right now, we finished a training session this week in Chicago. It was our 2nd training session. We are also kicking off our pilots this week. So we will actually be testing this new best practice process with 4 distributors and 4 manufacturers, and we're very excited about that as well. So that said, let me move on to the next slide. And for this slide, this slide is called the team, and that's really what it was. This is the team that came together once a month. A lot of dialogue and a lot of interaction went on between the meetings, but this was a great team that helped drive the output that you're about to see. And quite frankly, you can't develop a best practices process or a best practices output without having a great team and a representative team. And I think anybody that's looking at the slide and looking at the companies represented would clearly agree this is a great representation of the food service world. So with that, real quickly, if you remember, this is the slide we showed at the last webinar, only we were somewhere around August and developing the definition. We are now to the point where we've talked implications to the organization. How do we do this ourselves? We have finished the training, and now we are in the pilot stage. So with that, let's jump right into the first deliverable. And we talked about creating that definition of food service category management, and again, being very specific about it. So And as you think about this definition, it had input from all of the representatives of all of those companies on the previous slide. So the definition we came up with, a collaborative consumer and category-based planning and execution process. And I want to stop there for a second. Execution was a critical piece of this. We've all been involved in category plans before and category planning work where the execution has fallen short. So we did put emphasis on execution. Among food service industry stakeholders, and again, a lot of times we think about category management being between two parties. We realize now that this is not only multifunctional, but it'll have many different parties involved, including the brokers, including the data houses, the insight houses, and different parties. Leveraging mutually agreed to goals, insights, strategic and tactical plans. We think that's important. We're going to talk about a step that addresses all of that. And then this plan needs to drive improved business results. So that's one of the other key points. Again, we've probably all worked on category plans where we haven't necessarily grown the category or improved the business results, and that's a key component of this plan. If we're going to do the work, it really has to drive improved business results. I'm not going to read the primary outputs, but again, you can read those. Again, it really just restates some of the key pieces about making sure that we've got the right plan. We're going to talk about how parts of this will be customized by segment, and we'll talk about some of the execution and the tools. Next slide. This is the full plate business process. That is the name of the food service category management best practice business process. It is called full plate. It's got 8 steps. The 8 steps are clearly laid out. Again, I'm not going to read each and every one of those for you and the subtext beneath it, but it starts with discovery and alignment, which is very simply making sure that the people that are going to work on that category plan have the right goals and objectives and clearly have a plan laid out before they start the work. This is a key step. We spent a lot of time on this in our meetings. Category definition and category role, I think those are pretty self-explanatory, but vitally important. How do we decide the definition, what's in and what's out, and then what role is that going to play? And that goes all the way down to the operator and the impact on the consumer or the patron. What is the role of that category in the portfolio? The vision, where do we expect that category to be in 3 to 5 years? Insights identification is still probably one of the most robust sections of the process. We'll talk about that in a second, but really focused on getting the insights of the consumer, the insights of the operator, of the marketplace. And then building out the consumer and category strategies that will drive the plan. Using the tactics to really drive the how are we going to get there. So if the strategies are the choices we make, the what are we going to do, the tactics are how are we going to get there. That goes into step 7, which is really how are we going to activate this in the marketplace and what are the targets we're going to set. Step 8 is all about review and refine. So we want to make sure we review the plan, refine when necessary, and then keep moving on. So let me talk about step 3. When you think about the inputs and the outputs, one of the things that came out of this work for each one of the steps, we've clearly mapped out the process, and for every step from discovery and alignment all the way through review and refine, you'll find a definition of what is this step about, what are the primary inputs that go into doing that work, what are the primary outputs that come out of that work, and then any key considerations or relevancy for the food service space. So you'll see on this page there's basically 8 snapshots of those slides. Those are the slides that really kick off the 8 steps of each section to make sure that when you're doing the work, you know what the inputs and the outputs are going to be, and you know what you're going to get from doing that work. The next, number 4, the next thing we did was really talked about where do we want to gather insights from? Where do we want to collect these, and how is that going to allow us to do insights identification? So you'll see in front of you a slide that talks about 6 key domain areas, and they go from macro insights, what's going on in the environment, to insights specific to the category, then insights specific to the consumer and or the patron, operator insights, supply chain insights, and then capability-related insights. And those could be capabilities of the manufacturer, capabilities of the distributor, and the broker. So what this really delivers then is the ability to take all 6 of these domain areas and start answering the business questions that come with these domain areas. And this next slide, slide number 5, the comprehensive business question platform. This is just an example, but each one of the key domain areas has got a set of business questions. So if you think about the domain areas, there are a set of business questions that the parties building the plan will go through and talk about and decide whether they're a priority. So if you think about the 6 domain areas, we've got about 160 business questions. We don't expect that people will answer 160 business questions for every category plan, but we do think people will go through those 6 key areas. They will establish, you can see where the orange X's are on this page. Those were deemed priority for this plan. And then it talks about where are the sources that we're going to use to answer those business questions. Is it going to be distributor data? Is it going to be manufacturer data? Is it going to come from the NPD group? Are we going to leverage Supply Track? Is it going to come from Data Essentials? Are we going to leverage some of their menu or operator data? Or are we going to do primary research, or has our partner already done primary research? So this gives you an example of before we jump into the work, we really want to establish what questions do we want to solve for, what questions do we need to answer to build a truly robust category plan. So moving on to number 6, the next deliverable, or the next set of deliverables that we came up with as a team were some key frameworks, and I'm going to go into 2 of those in the next couple of slides. But we spent a lot of time, especially in the insights identification phase, or step 4, talking about what are the frameworks that we need to develop and able to not only answer these business questions, but really set us up to develop the right strategies and the right tactics to deliver the plan. So let me talk about 2 of those. So one of the key analytical frameworks is the consumer path to choice model. So if you think about it, this really talks about the consumer, or the patron, if you will, and what is their path to choice. And that really talks about when are they going to eat, and that could be very much occasion driven, or it could be really any time of the day when they decide that they want to eat. And then it's where to eat. What are their location influencers? What are their segment choices? And then what do they eat? And a lot of that has to do with menu choice, influencers, what's offered on the menu. So the next slide I'm going to show you is just a brief example. So if you were actually doing this work and building a category plan with your partner, you would fill out this consumer path to choice using the insights that you've developed, and be able to talk about what are the key insights around when people eat. And again, I'm not going to read all the words to you, but you can see the example we set up here. This talks about people are time constrained in the morning. A lot of people only have time to eat as they drive to work. So in this example, when we talk about when to eat, the observation or insights would be around time constraints, eating in the car, driving to work. The where to eat, they don't have time to sit down, so they're going to choose either a drive-through, a C-store, or something else that's convenient. So those are their their real driving forces around where they're going to eat, even to the point that people don't like to make left-hand turns, so they'll pick restaurants, C-stores, QSRs on the right side of the street versus the left. And then last, the what do they want to eat? If they want to make a healthy choice, what are they going to pick off that menu? What price bracket are they in? What are they looking to spend? And then can they actually eat their meal or whatever they got in the car and do it without making a complete mess of themselves on the way to work? So this is the consumer path to choice model, and we think this is a key step as you're working through the insights phase and answering those business questions and being able to answer the questions that go with this model. The next model that just came up is the operator steps to choice, and this is much more focused on the operator and talking about what to use is the first step. So what are the characteristics of the products that they're looking for? What kind of performance are they looking for in those products? What's the menu application that goes with that? And then how do they choose? What's their purchase criteria? So what is their purchase criteria set around price, around performance, around quality, flavor, taste, and then where to buy? What are the influences for their sourcing? What is their trusted source? What kind of delivery specs do they have? What is the fully loaded cost for that? What kind of programs? And then the last step, what to change, is the whole, again, evaluation and refinement, and the influence on those could be anything from performance to customer satisfaction, feedback, changes in flavor or pricing in the marketplace. So again, just a brief example of that, continuing with the same theme, if you will, using C-stores. But so the observation insight is consumers come into C-stores to get their morning coffee, but at the same time they end up buying snacks, lottery tickets, and lots of other things in that C-store. So one of the other observations about how to source and the purchase criteria is to make sure that the equipment is up 100% of the time, because we know that consumer, that patron, wants to be in and out quickly. It tends to be a destination trip and a differentiator for that store. So the final observation on sourcing would be a supplier with 24/7 service that guarantees 1-hour equipment service when needed. So if you think about the steps to usage for an operator, again, it really digs into how are they going to run their business effectively and what decisions they're going to make. So the next slide, slide number 7, each step of the process. One of the things we we thought about right away. As you think about a new process, it's one thing to have that process in front of you and say, I clearly understand all 8 of those steps, but now I've got to go back, whether I'm a distributor, whether I'm a manufacturer, whether I'm a broker, I have to go back and do that work now. So how does that work get done? So what we've developed, and this is just an example, but each section of the 8-step process, of the full plate process, has a set of planning worksheets that go with it. So it basically walks you through step by step. So discovery and alignment, I'm going to use it as an example for step 1. As a distributor, what are my corporate objectives? What are my corporate strategies? What am I looking to accomplish? As a manufacturer, what are my corporate objectives? What are my strategies? For the distributor, what are my key target segments for this category? And for the manufacturer, do those align? So, and that's where the discovery and alignment comes from. This is a great place to make sure before you jump into a category plan with a partner that you are completely aligned. And if you're not, how do you resolve that? And if you can't, you may have the wrong partner, and this is the right time to decide that. And that goes all the way through to step 8, to review and refine. And literally, we've got examples in there of worksheets and tools to use to accomplish all 8 steps of the process. So with that, I just want to spend 2 minutes, because I know we've got about 7 minutes left. I want to spend 2 minutes talking about what we talked about at our last meeting of the board. And so we've now got the best practices definition of food service category management. We've got the process. We've got the worksheets. We've got key analytical models to use. One of the big questions, though, is our organization, and when I say our organization, it could be from a distributor's point of view, manufacturer's point of view, it could be from a broker's point of view. Frankly, it could be even from the data house's point of view. Are we built properly to support this work? Can we support category management? So if you think about that, and I'm not going to go through this in any detail, but if you think about how your organization is structured today, is it set up and is it ready to do the work that we just talked about over the last 20-plus minutes? If it's not, you probably need to do an organizational assessment and figure out where are your opportunity areas. Because clearly you don't want to be in a position with category management working with your partners and find out that you don't have the right resources, you don't have the right data, you don't have the right people that can make the decisions. So this was a key piece of our last meeting, and very much mutual agreement amongst all parties in the room that this is a key piece to solve for. So with that, building capability, which is really what we were just talking about on slide 17, but one of the things we did as we wrapped up was we talked about how do you go back and do this self-assessment with your organization. How are you going to build the knowledge across the organization? How are we going to teach people to actually do the work? And again, this is one of those areas where it's very easy to look at the process and look at the tools and say, yeah, I can do this. This looks very easy. It's another thing when you get into it and actually start doing this work. Having been with a distributor and a manufacturer this week, kicking off one of our pilots, we spent probably a lot more time than anybody thought we would spend just on the discovery and alignment phase. So and that leads to the how do we select partners in building these category plans. Definitely have the right partners, but a lot of questions to answer up front. And then, we talked about it, how are we going to actually develop the content? So if you think about insights identification, if you're a manufacturer or distributor or broker, you'd like to set up a library of insights for your key categories. You'd like to be able to go to those on a regular basis and use those. And then last but not least is how do we structure our organization to do this work? And that's not saying that everybody needs to restructure to accomplish this, but you definitely need to look at your organizational structure and determine, do you have any gaps on how the work is going to get done and who needs to do it? Or are there additional resources that you need to do this work, and those resources come in many different forms. I guess the last thing I would say about that, TPG as well as the rest of the people on this board, we all know we're very committed to this work. TPG is very committed to helping the industry operationalize this process. So we will be working with IFMA going forward to make sure that we can offer people resources when they need them, when they need it, help when they need it, training when they need it. And with that, I will hit my last slide. We've talked about training. We will have training available as we move forward. We are also right in the middle of kicking off 4 pilot plans, 4 distributors, 4 manufacturers. We'll have brokers involved as well as the data houses like the NPD Group and Data Essentials. So we're excited. We will provide an update on when the white paper will be released. Right now we're targeting the first or second week of February to release that, and we'll also have updates on the progress on the pilot plan. So with that, I'd like to just thank everybody for their time today, and I will turn it back over to Devon from IFMA.
Thanks, Jeff. If people who are on the call, if you're interested in being part of the Food Service Category Management Update Group, and that group receives proactive communications from IFMA and TPG regarding the Food Service Category Management Initiative work, you can go online to IFMA World, click on Communities, Food Service Category Management, and then when you click on Food Service Category Management, you can go on the right side of your screen and click on Join this Community. Thank you, Jeff, very much for that informative presentation, and thank you everyone for participating in this webinar.